Welcome to Toni Unleashed, the podcast where we unleash the truth about all things pets.
Our research and anecdotal evidence matched with pet expert interviews will help you help your pet thrive.
We are here to answer questions, divulge information, and spread awareness about what's really going on in the world of pets.
I am your co-host, Emily Taylor, pet nutrition enthusiast.
And I'm Toni Shalasky, owner of Healthy Pet Products with 3 locations in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and recently expanded to Port Charlotte, Florida. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to Toni Unleashed. Today's topic, we're going to talk about Kibble. We're going to talk about the do's, the don'ts, how to read an ingredient list, nutritional value of common Kibble ingredients, what extrusion is, how it works. Basically, we're going to talk about Kibble 101. Our guest today is a friend. He's done several training programs for our team members and is a wealth of knowledge. He is Nature's Logic's tri-state area sales representative and pet enthusiast, Bob Romig. I pronounced that correctly, right?
Woo!
Sound bit.
Yes,
Sound bit.
Thanks, Bob. We're excited to have you.
I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, this is our first guest.
Yes. So this is a big day.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's talk about just like brief overview of Nature's Logic and just like it's a really great kibble. We sell it a lot. I mean, multiple bags a day, if not hourly, at the pet store. It's one of our top selling kibbles, especially with the DCM issue that still lingers around years later. Both my dogs do really well on it in conjunction with raw, and it's one of the 2 foods that we sell that is synthetic free, and it uses millet as a binder, which we'll discuss what that means later. And it is also a rotational line, which is very important for dogs. And we'll go over both those things as we talk and carry on with the conversation. How does that sound?
I think that's great. The only other thing I'd want to mention is Nature's Logic does make more than just kibble. But tonight we're just going to focus on kibble.
Yeah.
I'm sure Bob would be more than happy to come back and talk about the raw line.
Yeah. Bone broth line.
Bone broth canned, everything.
Yeah.
So, but tonight it's just all about kibble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just back to the basics of dog food.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Bob, our first question is, how long have you been in this pet food industry and whatnot?
Yeah, so you had to start off with the really good question, right? When I sat down and did the math, I started getting a little upset. But longer than I'd like to admit, I've been at this in one way or another since 1983. So I've had the pleasure of working, retail just like you folks, for some distribution partners and also a couple of manufacturers, obviously. So I've been very lucky in my career to work for great companies.
And how long have you been with Just Nature's Logic then?
Just Nature's Logic, I've crossed 4 years just recently.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And 4 compared to 39 years total. I did the math in
quick math
in the pet food industry. That's a long fucking time.
Yeah, and to save myself a little bit, I did start when I was 13. So
I was going to say 10. But,
Wait, why 13? What were you doing at 13?
My parents had a store.
Oh, really?
Isn't that something?
I had no idea.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I thought that was
little full line pet store.
So would you work on the weekends or go after school? Like...
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I was there, basically, every available hour, especially during the summer.
Uh-huh.
Again, it was a full line store. If I had a penny for every goldfish that I counted out or cricket that I counted out, I would definitely be a rich man.
Wow.
Oh, so you sold animals there?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no dogs and cats, but small animals, birds,
yeah,
reptiles, all of the above.
Wow. So you've probably really seen the industry change, because I feel like now everyone's like obsessed in like a whole new way with their animals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the clients have changed. The foods have obviously changed. When I started, back in the day, the brands that are considered quality are definitely a lot different than they are today.
Wow. Well, that brings us to our question about kibble. The first question here, like specifically about Nature's Logic food, is because Nature's Logic prides itself on high quality food and nutrition. And not only do they make, we talked about this, kibble, but raw food, freeze-dried treats, bone broth, supplements. Talk about the process of how Nature's Logic makes its kibble, how they maintain its quality. What is the quality of the food?
Sure. So what Nature's Logic does differently than every other extruded kibble made is we are the only one that is truly labeled as 100% all natural because we do not use any synthetic ingredients or the chemical vitamin.
To say that there's only two kibble brands on the market is that's huge. I mean, think about how many brands there are.
Yeah. Well, so in the definition of extrusion, they always, like on all the different definitions that you find, they say they spray on like fat or synthetic vitamins and minerals. So you guys don't spray anything on after the kibble is dried out.
There are some of the ingredients that are sprayed on after the cooking process. Mm-hmm. Your probiotics will definitely be part of that. Porcine plasma, sprayed on liver. All of these things will come on after the cooking process to help maintain the vitamins and minerals. You definitely don't want some of those ingredients heated up. Probiotics, especially, you would lose all the effectiveness if they went through the cooking process.
What are your ingredients in your kibble, and what are ingredients that customers should avoid in kibble?
So definitely some of the things to avoid would be any of the synthetics. So when you see vitamin C listed on an ingredient panel or vitamin A, whatever it happens to be, those will all be synthetic. Unfortunately, there's no way for us as a dog food company to just stick a syringe into an orange and say, well, I just want to suck out the vitamin C so that I can put this on some dog food. Other things that you would definitely want to avoid in a pet food would be any ingredients that are undeclared. So if you saw something that was just listed as animal fat or meat meal without it being declared what the protein source actually is it chicken? Is it beef? Is it turkey? Et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Other synthetics that you would see on a label today would be something listed such as taurine or anything listed as DL-something or L-something. Those are all indicative of synthetic amino acids. DL-methionine being one of the biggest ones.
Mm-hmm. So what is meal? Because you guys use protein meal, right?
Sure, absolutely.
That's the first ingredient?
Meal.
Yeah.
It's the first ingredient in our original line, and it's the second ingredient after fresh meat in the distinction line. So what meat meal is dried and powdered protein and meats. It takes 3 to 4 pounds on average of fresh meat to make 1 pound of meal. So it is very nutrient dense. Very protein dense, and helps kibble keep its shape because it's a dry ingredient.
So how I like to explain it to customers, and a lot of times, unfortunately, customers automatically associate meal with a byproduct. So we all explain that to customers that absolutely does not mean byproduct,
right.
And that a big benefit of using meal is because when you do see meal, that has a lot of weight in the ingredient panel, and it, just like human food, it goes by weight on the ingredient panel. So any fillers, which I realize Nature's Logic has the least amount possible, but in generally speaking, when you see a fresh meat only followed by multiple carbohydrates, your carbohydrate load far exceeds your protein load. So we happily share that with all of our customers, which is why we wanted to start this podcast, because we want to reach more people than just who walks in our door.
Sure. And Toni, that's a great point. So when you take a look at fresh meat versus meal, you would definitely want to have both. Some other folks in the industry have gone to fresh meat only formulations. And as you were describing, as you put those meats through the cooking process, on average, they'll lose about 80% of their water weight.
Yeah.
So in a situation where you're looking at an ingredient panel, which is of course all pre-cooked weights, once the cooking process has taken place and 80% of that water weight is gone, that's probably nowhere near the first ingredient, which is why it's very important to have a meat meal there backing it up for you before you start with any carbohydrates or any binders that are in the food.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I was doing like a little bit of looking into meals a little bit before this, and that's what I was rating is basically like a chicken is 70 to 80% water and 18 actual percent protein. So you're eliminating the water content and you just have the protein content right there. But how many chickens does it take to get to the actual protein content that you want in your food? Boiled down.
That's a fairly nuanced question. So here's what you're really trying to accomplish with protein percentages. So as you pointed out, raw chicken will be in that 16 to 18%, protein percentage range. And obviously when you flip over a bag of dog food, you're going to see a higher number than that. Well, yes, of course it is, because again, you've removed the water weight.
Yeah.
So very similar to when you take a look at something like a freeze-dried treat. You might take a look at that and you'll see it's just a single ingredient freeze-dried chunk of chicken, and the protein percentage will be up around 70%. Well, if we put the water weight back into that little chunk, it would, of course, come back down to that 18%. So for animals, especially for cats, this becomes, very critical, and why freeze-dried, treats or foods, you have to be very careful with cats. They're not used to drinking that much water. So they have a very hard time consuming enough water to bring that protein back down where it's not a problem for them to digest.
Yeah, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked that question.
How many chickens does it take?
It went from like a very stupid question to a very good answer.
Yeah, and it also really boils down to the specific animal. So, I mean, you can take a look at pet food bags right now, and you can find protein percentages that range, anywhere from maybe even as low as 16 to 18% in what you might call a senior or a weight loss formula. Yeah, all the way up to somewhere in the mid 30s. And some folks had concerns about anything that was over a 30%, and it's really only a concern again if that animal is not drinking back enough water to kind of bring that back to a baseline.
Yeah, which brings up a good point. We do always recommend adding at least water to kibble, folks,
or bone broth,
I mean,
some sort of hydration.
You have to add in some type
bone
of
broth, goat's milk.
Yep. Yeah. Anything. At least do water, preferably not tap water.
Especially for cats.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's because bloat, gastric torsion, the kibble expands before it's like fully digested.
And not only that, it helps them to digest it.
Yeah.
When we add moisture.
So let's talk about binders and millet. What are common binders that you see in kibble, and why have you guys chosen millet as your binder?
Sure.
And what is a binder? Because that's probably
and that's probably the best place to start. Yeah. What's a binder? Why are they in there? And the kind of the necessary piece of a kibble is what's holding it together into that nice little convenient crunchy shape that consumers tend to have fallen in love with. And really, it's the binder that does that. Without something to hold that kibble together, we're either going to have a bag of dust or, at best in a dry form, or you would basically have a canned food if all the moisture were returned to it. So that's the real job of a binder. Now, if you're very lucky, you can choose something that provides, a chunk of nutrition, that you may need. But in most cases, really, you're just looking for something that isn't negatively affecting the food. So we have chosen millet because millet has a very low sugar content. We're not requiring the millet to provide a whole lot of vitamin and mineral content for us. We just really want something that's going to hold the kibble together and not negatively affect the recipe overall. So millet is doing a wonderful job for us in that respect. It is a lower sugar content binder than the vast majority that you would find in grain-free foods, where peas are very, very prevalent. Now, peas are extremely high in sugar content.
Most people don't realize that.
Absolutely not. I don't eat them, so I wouldn't have thought it. But for the folks that I talk to that do eat peas, they scratch their heads and they go, "Oh, yeah, that's right."
Mm-hmm.
That they do taste really good. So that's part of the reason why peas are so heavily used in our industry today. Is they are loaded with sugar, so they're palatable and taste good. They're very high in plant proteins, which of course allows you to maintain a higher percentage of protein on your guaranteed analysis via plant protein instead of animal protein, which obviously is far more expensive.
I mean, that would take us right into like the importance of animal protein versus plant protein and your top ingredients in the bag.
Sure.
And a lot of people.
And just jumping back very quickly on the binder, you will only ever find one binder material in any Nature's Logic formula. So in our original formula and the first couple from the Distinction line, we use millet. And in the Distinction grain-free line, we're using tapioca root. Now, the other thing that happens quite a lot in our industry is what's called fractioning. So you can flip over a bag right now and see pea flour, pea starch, pea fiber, pea protein, red lentils, green lentils, fava beans, et cetera, all in the same bag. Now, why would you do that? Again, it's called fractioning. It's because if you were to add all those pieces up and just called them legumes, probably the first ingredient, which of course, nobody wants to ever have the starch as the first ingredient.
Yeah.
So as far as transparency of ingredients, Bob, I think Nature's Logic is a leader in that as well. And I don't recall, are you on still on Susan Thixton's approved list? Do we know that?
I'm not sure at this point if we are or not.
Okay.
We used to be, and then she kind of progressed into a little bit more of a pay for list for her customers.
Yeah, it's like $15.
And I'm just not sure at that point whether we decided to continue down that path or not.
Oh, she wanted money from you, from the manufacturers?
No, I don't know if it was from the manufacturers or not. I know we were on the list at one point, and I don't know if we still are or not.
You know whose list you guys are on? And I sent this article to you today, Chewy's list. And actually, Chewy has like a list of really high quality dog foods and kibbles, and I know for sure your cans are on there. Yeah.
Yeah, not surprising. We're probably jumping ahead to get onto canned foods, but absolutely. We're highly listed on Dog Food Advisor as well.
Oh yeah, Dog Food Advisor. I forget about that one sometimes. So is millet? What is millet? Is it a grain? Is it a seed? What is it?
That is absolutely a question I'm not going to answer. There's a little bit of conjecture out there as to whether it would be considered a grain product or a grain-free product because it's being used in its seed form. And like so many things, out there today, no matter what we say, I'm pretty sure half the world would be mad at us. So we don't really make a straight declaration there, but err on the side of caution to say that would be our grain inclusive product.
So,
but there are some folks out there that will definitely, want to argue that point.
I mean, because I know when the whole DCM issue first started, we were putting a lot of customers who wanted off grain-free food, but didn't necessarily believe the whole be on grain. So many customers went on Nature's Logic because of that millet and because it kind of can be seen as grain seed category.
Yeah, absolutely. We were positioned very well during the whole DCM situation. But fortunately, regardless of what your feeling is on any particular philosophy of feeding, whether it's grain in or grain free, I think what we all learned through DCM was that the binder really doesn't matter. What matters is meat content.
Amino acids.
As long as there's enough. Yes, yeah, absolutely. As long as there's enough meat in the product, in theory, we would not have taurine deficiency. Now,
right.
Yes, of course, certain breeds, certain dogs are just going to have an issue,
right.
Either processing or creating their own. But meat really does solve all problems.
Well, and that goes back to what you were just saying about clumping in all of these legumes and all of these peas and these proteins that aren't actually animal proteins as the first ingredient, but then looking down on the general analysis and seeing, a protein percentage that you're told to like be within, but that protein is from the legumes and not actually from animal protein.
That's correct. And unfortunately, in our labeling system, there's no way really to determine that other than the manufacturer's claim that might be on the bag. Now, some folks will, definitely have, a higher percentage of protein from animal source. Mm-hmm. Other folks chose to label it in quite a different way. And you actually did learn how little in some cases of the overall protein percentage from the guaranteed analysis was actually from animal ingredients.
So to continue our conversation about animals and animal protein, animal ingredients, let's talk about rotational feeding and the importance of that and the importance of rotating through proteins and how nature's logic makes it easier to do that.
Sure. Animals in the wild. One of my favorite, ways to describe this to consumers was a show that I saw on the Discovery Channel a fair chunk of years back. But it was basically chronicling what would happen to the planet if people literally disappeared in, the blink of an eye. And what they were finding was dogs were forming packs within 24 hours. And, show me a dog that's in a pack, hunting for their very existence. It's going to say, oh, no, I couldn't possibly eat that squirrel. I only eat rabbits. So, basically, they're going to, they're going to feed themselves basically any way they can on whatever, animal they can mm-hmm. take down. And, that's one of the ways to kind of describe that to consumers. The other thing I like to do is try to put them in the same spot. So I've said this, and I probably said this to a number of your customers just a month or so ago, where I would challenge them and say, I'd like you to eat pizza, the exact same pizza and nothing else for 5 years, which is basically what some customers do to their dogs.
Yeah.
And then I suggested that the very next day you go ahead and have a nice big salad and tell me how that works out for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because believe me, you're not going to have a good day.
Right.
And that's what happens to the average consumer when they feed nothing but the yellow bag for 5 years straight. And then for whatever reason, the formula can change. A delivery was late, whatever it happens to be. And they kind of know right off the bat that they're in for a problem, but they don't realize really why. And the why is because their animal is so used to only digesting one specific set of ingredients. Now you've changed those ingredients, after a number of years at the flick of a switch. And yes, no wonder they have some gastric upset.
Oh, well, right. When you're rotating through proteins, you're allowing your body to continue to produce digestive enzymes to break down new ingredients, new animal proteins. And I explain it similarly. I'm like, do you have kids who are going to throw down a hot dog, who are going to throw down turkey, who are going to throw down their chicken nuggets that your dog's going to eat? And is their body equipped to digest that, break it down, and not have a digestive issue or an upset? Because if you're rotating through chicken and turkey and salmon and lamb and beef, they can throw down,
anything successfully.
Yeah,
for the most part,
because you're strengthening the digestive tract.
Right. And when you feed the same thing over and over and over again,
right,
you're losing the digestive enzymes that you don't need.
Right. I mean, that literally happens to me because I'm a vegan and I don't eat meat, and I have not for 7 years. And then I go to a different country recently and accidentally eat something that I'm not supposed to. And I get really, really sick.
Yeah.
For a long period of time because my body does not know how to break any of that down because it's been 7, 8, 9 years of not eating it.
Right.
It's the same thing for dogs that come in.
Absolutely. Yep. And, that's why we have so many different formulations. So, in the original line, obviously there's 9 of them, in Distinction 7, for a total of 16 you can absolutely swap between. And one of the things that I will tell consumers all the time is please just buy a different color bag every time you shop. And that's the way you address it.
So when I tell people that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of err on the side of caution. I'm like, okay, for the first time you start rotating, go a little bit slower, but eventually within the first 6 months to a year, you will be able to have a dog that can have, a scoop of turkey food in the morning and maybe like beef at night, or go from, like you said, a bag each time. With your food, can they go directly, like starting off, like a dog that has only been on chicken for maybe 2 years, can they go directly from just your chicken food to your beef food, or should they do a slow transition? What do you recommend?
In theory, you should absolutely be able to change. Just, one bag's empty, you're going to start the next bag. But to your point, I always err on the side of caution as well. So especially if you've had a dog that has been locked into a single formula for really anything over a year, I would definitely spend a week in those first couple transitions just to kind of help them through that. A couple days, 25% of the new food, 75% of the old food, a couple of days at 50-50, a couple of days at 75% of the new food, 25% of the old. And you're kind of watching them throughout the process. And obviously, if there are any of the obvious issues, then you know that you need to either slow down, or perhaps that is just one of those unusual times where protein doesn't quite, agree with the dog or cat.
And is that because the base formula is pretty much the same for each different protein, and it's just the protein content that changes?
Well, that certainly does make life a little bit easier when the majority of the other ingredients are very similar. But, that's the ideal point to mix in something else, because then you're being slightly hypocritical and saying, well, we only want you to change the proteins, but not any of the other ingredients.
Right.
So that's where you can easily flip in, for instance, our grain-free, again, cans, or, you can do anything. You can mix in raw once in a while, just anything that mixes up what they're taking in, on a somewhat regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Toni.
All I was going to say was I also do the same thing. I err on the side of caution if they have been buying the same bag for like a year.
Yeah.
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 So
the other real easy step or additional piece to that might be to get a can of pumpkin when you're transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
So just a spoon or two, pumpkin on top there. Goat's milk also helps with that. You get quite a boost of probiotics, and it really helps that process along.
Nature's Logic does have a wonderful canned pumpkin, and In Clover Optigest is another big one we recommend for transitioning.
And they have a lot of the times we'll recommend things like licky mats and Kongs, and Nature's Logic has canned food that matches. Like, so if you're feeding a chicken, like their chicken bag of kibble, you can buy their can of chicken food for enrichment for your licky mats.
Yep.
And so you're not, but you can mix and match those too. Just mix and match everything.
And it helps with hydration as well. So, in some cases, we can kind of preach this until we're blue in the face. But, sometimes folks just want to lock into a habit. So let's say that they only want to feed, the chicken kibble.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Then the cans are the perfect way to be able to rotate the proteins.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So
And it's more the human than it is the dog.
Oh,
We feel
yeah.
that humans just are
Oh,
so
100%.
creatures of habit and patterned, and oh boy, it's tough.
Right.
It's,
yeah.
Even when you get down to trying multiple samples. So we've had this happen, quite a few times too, where maybe you send them home with 2 or 3 different samples. And when they report back, they'll say, well, she really loved 2 of them, but the third one, she ate it, but she didn't seem overly thrilled. And, again, when I get a consumer that says that, I just say, oh, did your kids like the broccoli too? Oh, they didn't? Well, they ate it, but, they weren't thrilled. So just because they're not licking an empty bowl after,
right.
Sampling a new protein doesn't mean it's not good for them.
Right.
So if they do well
That's
on
good.
it and they don't flat out refuse to buy it, refuse to eat it, it's still a good thing for them to have.
And it's really important. I like it too for when you have a multiple dog or cat household and you run out of one. Well, I have one dog that can only really eat lamb for a lot of reasons, and then one dog who can eat anything. So if I run out of that second dog's food who can eat anything, I can always rely. He can have anything that I have, pretty much. Like if I have leftover lamb food, he can eat that. If I have leftover cat raw food, he can eat that too, because his body is so used to having so many different things. And it helps you when you just don't have enough time in that day to buy exactly that bag of chicken that you think he needs.
Absolutely. So, I practice what I preach in this, and my cats get a different protein every single time they eat.
Nice.
So the morning feeding and then the evening feeding are always different proteins.
Yeah. Same.
Well, and one point I like to also make people realize is how manipulated they've been through marketing, because for how many years now we've been trained to think through marketing that we can't change our dog's food or cat's food because they'll get sick.
Right.
And
they're getting sick because we've only offered them one option for their entire life.
But it's a genius marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 15 years.
So many people are so scared. They're like, I heard it's so bad to switch your dog's food.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I hear it's really good to switch your dog's food.
Yeah. It can be done.
Yeah, that's where those simple human analogies come, into play. I'll remind them that they would not last very long eating the exact same thing all the time.
Yep.
So
yeah,
usually that little light bulb goes off, and they'll also realize that dogs in the wild, whether it's wild dogs, wolves, whatever a close wild analogy you want to make is, they're always eating something different. There are very, very few creatures in nature that are truly specialists that only do one thing.
And in this, and now everyone knows, I think, because of COVID, there are so many shortages of proteins, ingredients. So it's not, you're not guaranteed to be able to feed your dog the same thing for the next 10 to 12 years, which is the way that, because of the way the world is working right now. So you have to allow for some flexibility, some other options in your
some
dog's
people
diet.
have been forced into changing.
Forced into it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, and you don't want that
Sure.
to happen.
The last couple of years that's definitely been the case over the last couple of years. There has been a strain on supply lines like we probably haven't seen in most of our lifetimes anyway. But look, it can happen any other time. There's a lot of potential for human error in the supply chain. Did somebody not get our order right? Did somebody at distribution not quite place the order right? Did one of your employees forget to order 1 instead of 10? Whatever the case may be, it's very, very easy to run out of a single formula.
But if you have a dog that can rotate through all the proteins,
you've got nothing to worry about.
Speaking of that,
absolutely, and that's why I promote us right now at 16 different formulas that you can rotate through.
Wow!
And those 16 different. Well, actually, I don't know this for a fact, but you guys are on just to pull everything together, summarize everything, hit it with a home run.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. The 16 different formulas, are they all equal? So that you guys have an sorry. What is it? Astro?
Yeah.
Just Astro?
Astro. Frequent buyer.
Yeah, frequent buyer. Basically, I'm getting to the point of frequent buyer that
Right.
Nature's Logic offers frequent buyer, where you buy 12 bags of food, you get your 13th bag free, and that is across all 16 rotational foods, or is that just your original and your distinction are separate?
Nope, they're all available via Astra for the frequent buyer program.
Okay, so you have to buy 12 5-pound bags. You have to buy 12 12-pound bags, and then what's the big one now?
20.
Yes.
27.
Yes.
27 pound?
Yeah, and the way the frequent buyer is always going to work, if there was one formula that was less expensive than the others, then that's going to end up being the free one.
Yeah.
And it's important to also point out you don't have to buy all 12 at one time.
Yes.
Depending on where you live, where you shop, but most POS systems will track all of that for you. Ours definitely does. So that's
yeah.
And if I remember correctly, that's set at 18 months.
Oh, you have
So
to do it
you're
within 18
right.
months?
You do not. I believe so.
Okay.
Oh, well, that's super.
And then it
doable.
like automatically resets.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
The last
most folks are getting, on average a bag a month anyway.
Yeah.
So that gives them that
For
extra
sure.
time.
yeah.
And the last thing I'll add about Nature's Logic that we did not touch base on is the kibble size. And it is all life stages, which we didn't talk about. It's all life stages, and the kibble size is good for little dogs, even though you don't like brand it or market it as small breed. It's small enough size for your 12-pound dogs, your 15-pound dogs. And it's also a good size for your 50-pound dogs, your 60-pound dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all life stages and
absolutely.
all pounds, all size dogs.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Sweet.
I think that was a good overview.
I think that was our best episode yet, honestly. Yeah, thanks for keeping us on topic. That was the biggest thing.
Maybe he's not drinking.
Two out of the 3 people are not drinking, so we should be pretty good.
This is just juice.
Bob, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
We'll let you know when
problem
the
at all.
episode drops
Oh yeah.
so that you can give us a 5-star.
Yeah,
And
we need
all of our
There we go.
listeners, please give us 5 stars.
Yeah.
And thanks
Will
for
do.
listening.
Absolutely. Hey, no problem. Anything for you guys.
Thanks, Bob. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Sweet.
Bye, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.